Early one cold morning, while the city was still rubbing the sleep from its eyes, people gathered at the busy bus stop just like they did every day. It was a usual rush, hands gripping coffee cups, scarves wrapped tight, minds already halfway to work. But today, something was different. Nestled near the worn wooden bench, hidden by a tattered blue blanket, was a small, trembling shape. At first, many passed by without noticing. A few gave it a puzzled glance, assuming it was just a pile of forgotten clothes. It was Lucy, a young woman on her way to her first job interview, who finally stopped. Something about the way the blanket shifted caught her eye. Kneeling down, she gently pulled back a corner of the fabric, and her heart immediately broke. There, shivering and alone, was a tiny German shepherd puppy. His eyes were huge and fearful, glistening in the morning light. His small body shook with the cold, and his ears flattened back as he looked up at her, unsure whether to be afraid or hopeful. Beside him, weighed down by a small stone, was a crumpled piece of notebook paper. Lucy carefully picked it up, her fingers numb not from the cold, but from the sudden rush of emotion she felt. She could already tell that this wasn't just any lost puppy. Someone had placed him there on purpose, with a desperate kind of love that hurt just thinking about it. Around her, a few other people began to notice. A teenage boy stepped closer, peering at the puppy with wide eyes. A mother tugged her daughter's hand, whispering to her to stay close. The air changed at that bus stop. It was no longer just a place of routine. It had become a small, silent gathering around something fragile and heartbreaking. Lucy read the note silently, her lips trembling. She didn't want to cry in front of strangers, but the words on the page were too much. She looked around and saw the same reaction mirrored on every face: sadness, empathy, and a sudden, overwhelming need to help. Someone handed her a spare sweater to wrap around the puppy. Another woman offered half her sandwich, crumbling it into tiny pieces for the tiny creature to nibble on. The teenage boy pulled out his phone and snapped a quick photo, murmuring that he would post it online to find help. Without speaking, the people at the bus stop created a small circle around Lucy and the puppy, shielding them from the wind, from the rush of the world, and from the loneliness that had clearly weighed on this little animal for far too long. This was the beginning of something bigger than any of them could have imagined. Lucy unfolded the crumpled paper with trembling hands, smoothing it against her knee. The handwriting was shaky and uneven, as if written through tears. Every letter seemed to carry the weight of heartbreak. She began to read aloud, her voice soft but clear enough for those gathered around to hear. His name is Max. He is a good boy. I love him very much. I lost my home and I cannot take care of him anymore. I have no choice but to leave him here, hoping someone kind will find him. Please give him a good life. He deserves happiness. The words felt like a punch to the chest. People exchanged glances, some covering their mouths, others looking down at their shoes. The raw honesty of the note cut through the morning chill, leaving behind a heavy silence. It was clear that whoever left Max here hadn't done so out of cruelty. This was an act of love, a desperate choice made by someone who wanted better for their beloved friend. Lucy blinked rapidly, trying to hold back tears. She looked down at Max, who sat quietly at her feet, his big brown eyes watching her with a mix of confusion and hope. How many nights had he spent listening to his owner cry? How many times had he offered silent comfort, only to be left behind when the world grew too heavy? The teenage boy who had taken the photo earlier spoke up, his voice cracking slightly. We have to help him. We can't just leave him here. A middle-aged man in a suit nodded. I'll call a local shelter. They'll know what to do. An older woman pulled out a thermos from her bag and poured some warm water into a plastic lid, setting it down gently in front of Max. He sniffed it hesitantly before lapping it up, the trust in his small actions breaking even the toughest hearts standing there. As Lucy folded the note and tucked it safely into her coat pocket, she felt a strange sense of responsibility settle over her. She hadn't planned for this morning to be anything but ordinary. Now she was part of Max's story, whether she had intended to be or not. One by one, people offered rides, suggestions, and their own networks of contacts to find help for Max, strangers who had moments ago been focused only on their own busy lives, were now united by a tiny life in need. And through it all, Max remained there, quiet but present, offering a kind of silent bravery that made even the coldest morning feel just a little warmer. Within moments, the bus stop had become a hub of activity. Lucy gently cradled Max in her arms, feeling the warmth of his small body against her chest. The puppy was still shaken, his fur matted with dirt and his little paws trembling, but there was a spark in his eyes, a flicker of hope that hadn't been there when he first arrived. It was as if he knew something was about to change. A man in a red jacket, who had been waiting for his bus, stepped forward. "I'll drive him to the nearest vet," he said, his voice steady despite the emotion that had crept into his eyes. "I know a good one not far from here. We'll get him checked out." Lucy nodded, grateful. "Thank you so much," she replied, holding Max a little tighter. She hadn't expected this kind of support. The world often felt disconnected, full of people going about their busy lives, but this was different. This was a shared moment of compassion where everyone felt the responsibility to act. The teenage boy who had snapped the photo earlier now had his phone out, typing furiously. "I'm posting this online right now," he said. "We'll find someone who can help. We can't let this pup end up in the system. He needs a home." Within seconds, the post was live and comments began flooding in. Messages of love and support, offers of adoption, and recommendations for local rescue groups poured in faster than Lucy could keep up. It was like the entire city had come together to rally around Max. An older woman, her face lined with age, but her eyes warm and kind, placed a hand on Lucy's shoulder. "I know a shelter that specializes in German shepherds. They'll know just how to care for him." She smiled gently. "I'll make the call." As the crowd began to thin out, Lucy found herself overwhelmed by the kindness of strangers. Each person had a story, a reason for being there, but today they were all connected by one thing: a small, frightened puppy in need of help. "Thank you," Lucy said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Thank you all for helping." She could feel Max's tiny heartbeat against her chest as she spoke. There was still so much to be done, but for the first time since finding him, she believed everything would be okay. Max wasn't alone anymore. He had a community now, the support system, and most importantly, he had hope. As the man in the red jacket returned, ready to take Max to the vet, Lucy knew that the story of this little puppy was only just beginning. What had started as a heartbreaking moment at a cold bus stop was about to unfold into something beautiful, something no one could have predicted. The drive to the vet felt like the longest journey Lucy had ever been on. With Max in her arms, she stared out the window, her mind spinning with questions. Will you be okay? Would the vet have good news? She tried to comfort him, stroking his soft fur as he rested against her chest, but he was so quiet, so still. It broke her heart to think of what he had been through. When they finally arrived, the vet's office was bustling with activity, but the staff immediately noticed the tiny puppy in Lucy's arms and rushed to greet them. A kind-looking woman with short blonde hair took Max from Lucy, her hands gentle but firm as she cradled him in her arms. "He's a sweet one," the woman said softly, her eyes meeting Lucy's. "Let's get him checked out right away." Max was weighed, examined, and given a thorough checkup. The vet confirmed that he was underweight but otherwise healthy, with no major injuries. Lucy breathed a sigh of relief. It was the news she had been hoping for. Max had survived his ordeal, and now he was going to get the care he needed. While the vet finished up, Lucy sat in the waiting area, staring at the floor in deep thought. She couldn't help but wonder about Max's previous owner. Who were they? How had they come to the heartbreaking decision to leave him behind? What circumstances had led them to such a painful choice? The door opened, and the vet came out with a small bandage on Max's leg, where a minor scratch had been treated. "He's in good shape," the vet reassured Lucy. "A little malnourished, but he's strong. We're going to put him in a quiet space to rest for a bit, and then we can talk about next steps." "Thank you," Lucy said, her voice full of gratitude. She had been so worried, and hearing the good news felt like a weight lifting off her shoulders. Soon after, Max was settled in a soft, cushioned bed, surrounded by blankets and a warm light. He curled up instantly, his tiny body relaxing for the first time in what felt like forever. Lucy watched him, her heart swelling with love. She knew this wasn't the end of his journey, but it felt like a safe beginning. As she stood up to leave, the vet came over to her with a clipboard. "We'll be keeping him here for the night, but once he's ready, we'll help you find him the best home." She smiled warmly. "You're doing a great thing." Lucy nodded, feeling a rush of emotion. The journey ahead was uncertain, but she knew one thing for sure. Max had already found a new chapter, and it would be filled with nothing but love. Max's first night at the vet was peaceful. Lucy had stayed with him for hours, watching as he curled up on his soft bed, his small body finally resting after the trauma he'd endured. She felt a sense of relief knowing he was in good hands, but the thought of his past continued to linger in her mind. Who had he belonged to? What had led them to leave him at a bus stop, alone and frightened? The next morning, Lucy returned to the vet's office early, eager to see how Max had spent the night. As she walked into the back room, she found him awake and wagging his tail, his bright brown eyes locked on her. For the first time, Max looked excited to see her, as if he knew she was there to take him one step closer to a better life. "Hey, buddy," Lucy whispered, crouching down to meet him. He wobbled toward her, his movements still a bit unsteady but full of determination. When he reached her, he jumped up, resting his paws on her knees as if asking to be picked up. The vet came in with a warm smile, holding a small bag of food. "He's doing well," she said. "He's still a bit thin, but he's eating, drinking, and most importantly, he's active. He's adjusting to the care he's receiving, and we're confident he'll bounce back quickly." Lucy smiled with relief, her heart swelling with gratitude. "Thank you so much," she said, looking at Max. "You've done so much for him already." The vet nodded. "It's our job. We'll keep him here for a few more days to monitor him, and then we'll be ready to move him to a foster home. We have a few wonderful people who specialize in German Shepherds. They'll help him find a family that will give him everything he deserves." Those words were like music to Lucy's ears. She'd come to care for Max in the short time they'd been together, but she knew she couldn't keep him. The right family had to be out there, waiting to give him the love and stability he needed to heal fully. Over the next few days, Max's condition improved steadily. He ate more, played with the staff, and slowly regained the trust he had once lost. Lucy visited him daily, and each time she saw more of his true personality shining through. He was playful, curious, and incredibly affectionate. It was clear that Max was special. He wasn't just a puppy with a sad story. He was a survivor, full of potential and hope for the future. And as Lucy looked at him during her visits, she knew she would help him find the perfect home, where he could finally know what it was like to feel safe, loved, and cherished every single day. As Max's health continued to improve, the vet's office began receiving more and more inquiries about him. Word of the little German Shepherd puppy, abandoned with a heartbreaking note, had spread like wildfire across the city. The internet had taken hold of his story, and now everyone wanted to be a part of his journey. Lucy had spent hours scrolling through messages from people offering to adopt Max. Some were families with children, others were older couples looking for a companion. There were even offers from animal lovers who worked with rescue organizations, all eager to help. The kindness and generosity pouring in overwhelmed Lucy. It was clear that Max's story had struck a chord with so many, and they were ready to step up to offer him the love he had been denied. Still, Lucy knew that choosing the right family for Max wasn't going to be easy. This was a big decision. Max wasn't just any puppy. He had already been through so much, and he deserved a home that would understand his needs, give him the space to heal, and provide a lifetime of unconditional love. The shelter staff worked alongside Lucy to carefully vet the many applications that had come in. They considered everything, from the potential adopter's experience with dogs to their ability to offer a safe, stable environment. They didn't want to rush this process. Max needed the right fit, and they were determined to find it. One evening, after reading through what felt like the 100th application, Lucy came across a letter that stood out. It was from a couple named Anna and David. They had experience with rescue animals and had previously adopted several dogs, including a German Shepherd. They had a spacious farm, plenty of land for Max to run and play, and a deep love for animals that came through clearly in their words. Lucy was immediately drawn to them. Their letter was thoughtful and full of heart. They spoke about their farm, their routine, and how they would give Max the best life possible. They had the right balance of experience and compassion, and Lucy felt a deep sense of peace after reading their message. After a careful conversation with the shelter staff, it was decided. Anna and David would meet Max, and if the connection was right, they would become his new family. As Lucy readied Max for the meeting, she felt both nervous and hopeful. She had grown so attached to him in such a short time, and the thought of letting him go was bittersweet. But she knew this was the right step for him. He needed more than she could offer. The day of the meeting arrived, and Lucy found herself holding her breath, waiting to see how Max would react. This was his chance at a fresh start, and she hoped with all her heart that he would find the happiness he so deserved. The day Anna and David arrived at the shelter, Max was curled up on his favorite blanket, his ears perked up in anticipation. Lucy stood by his side, watching as the couple walked through the door. Anna, with her warm smile and gentle demeanor, immediately crouched down to his level, extending her hand slowly. Max hesitated for a moment, his tail twitching nervously, before he cautiously sniffed her fingers. David stood back, giving them space. His eyes were soft with kindness, and he observed the interaction quietly. "He's a beautiful dog," he said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. Max, still unsure, shuffled closer to Anna, his tail now wagging tentatively. Lucy could feel her heart race. It was a delicate moment, a puppy meeting the people who might be his future. Would he bond with them? Would they be the right fit? As Anna continued to gently speak to Max, her voice full of warmth, something changed in his expression. He took a few steps forward, then another, until he was standing right in front of her. Without warning, he leaned his head against her knee, as if giving her an unspoken sign that he trusted her. Anna's eyes welled up with tears as she reached down to pet him, her hand trembling slightly. "Oh, my sweet boy," she whispered, her voice full of emotion. "We've been waiting for you." Max nuzzled her hand, pressing his nose into her palm as if he had been waiting for her too. It was a perfect moment. Lucy felt a lump form in her throat. She had known from the start that Max deserved the very best, and now she could see it in front of her. This was the family that would give him everything he needed. After a few more minutes of bonding, Anna stood up, looking over at Lucy with a smile. "We'd be honored to adopt him," she said softly. "We've been looking for a German Shepherd, and Max is exactly what we've been waiting for." David stepped forward, offering Lucy his hand. "We promise to give him all the love and care he deserves. We have the space, the time, and the heart for him." Lucy nodded, fighting back tears. She had known this day would come, the day when she would have to let go of Max and trust someone else with his future. But as she looked at Anna and David, she knew she was making the right choice. Max was finally going to have the life he deserved. The couple agreed to take Max home that very day. Lucy carefully handed him over to them, feeling the bittersweet sting of letting go. But she also felt a sense of peace. She was giving him the opportunity to start fresh, to be the happy, playful dog he was meant to be. As Anna and David walked out the door with Max in tow, Lucy stood in the shelter, watching them disappear into the sunshine. Max was no longer the scared, abandoned puppy at the bus stop. He was a dog with a new family, a new beginning, and a future full of love. The first few weeks at Anna and David's farm were nothing short of magical for Max. The couple had set up a cozy corner for him by the fireplace, and he quickly settled into his new routine. He had room to run and explore, his days filled with fresh air, playtime, and endless affection. Max had been through so much in his short life, but now, every day felt like a gift. His coat became shinier, his weight returned to normal, and his once timid eyes were now filled with joy and curiosity. He had transformed from the scared puppy at the bus stop into a vibrant, confident dog, thriving in the loving home he had always deserved. Anna and David were everything Max needed. They understood his needs and patiently worked with him, as he adjusted to his new life. They gave him the space to heal emotionally, providing calm and consistent love. They had experience with German shepherds, and it showed. Max was learning to trust again, something he had been so reluctant to do when he first arrived. One afternoon, Lucy received a message from Anna. It was a photo of Max running through the fields, his tail flying high, with a big happy grin on his face. "He's so happy here," the message read. "Thank you for bringing him into our lives. We love him so much." Tears filled Lucy's eyes as she stared at the picture. Max was finally free from the pain of his past, and it was all thanks to the kindness of so many: the people at the bus stop, the shelter staff, the vet, and, of course, Anna and David. Lucy had often wondered if she had made the right decision in letting go of Max. But every time she saw the pictures and heard from his new family, she knew deep down it had been the right choice. Max had been given a chance, not just a chance at a new home, but a chance to heal, to love, and to be loved in return. Life went on for Lucy, but Max remained in her heart. She visited him from time to time, and each visit was a reminder of how far he had come. She saw the dog he had always been, the dog who had once been left alone at a bus stop, now flourishing in a family who adored him. The journey from abandonment to a loving home had been long and difficult, but it had ended in the most beautiful way imaginable. Max had found his forever family, and in doing so, he had brought a piece of hope back to the world, reminding everyone who had been touched by his story that love and kindness could heal even the deepest wounds.